In an attempt to bring their dog back to life, these boys accidentally awakened ancient dark forces that won't stop until they destroy everything around them. A famous actress, Renee Hallow, is starring in a horror movie. After another take, the film crew decides to take a short break. Renee's son, Jeff, comes to visit her. We learn that she recently divorced her husband, Chase, and the boy is having a hard time dealing with it. It's time to shoot another scene. Renee is walking through a flooded corridor in an old castle. Suddenly, one of the electrical devices falls into the water. Renee is struck by a powerful electric shock. Sadly, there's no way to save her. All of this happens right before Jeff's eyes. Chase is informed that his ex-wife has died. He comes to her funeral. The local sheriff, Gus Gilbert, approaches the man to offer his condolences. Chase and Jeff move into a small summer house. A pretty blonde named Marjorie enters their new home and tells the main characters she'll be working as their housekeeper. Jeff doesn't like her at all. Chase gets a job as a veterinarian at a private clinic. He takes Jeff to his workplace and shows the boy the animal cages. There is a cardboard box among them. Suddenly, that's just a furious cat. It turns out she's just trying to protect her kittens. Jeff takes one of them and names him Tiger. Soon after, a chubby boy named Drew Gilbert shows up at the clinic. He's brought his dog, Zoe, in for treatment. The dog immediately tries to catch one of the kittens, but Chase saves it in time. Drew is accompanied by his stepfather, Gus, the local sheriff, as you might remember. The man doesn't like his dog and thinks it's stupid, but Drew adores Zoe and worries about him deeply. The poor dog got into a fight with another animal and now has a scratched muzzle and a damaged eye. While Chase examines Zoe and prescribes treatment, Gus brags that he once had an affair with Renee. What a scumbag. Jeff starts attending a new school and even brings his kitten to class. After school, a group of local bullies led by Clyde Parker pick on him. They tease Jeff and notice his kitten. Clyde snatches the animal and runs off with it. Jeff jumps on his bike and chases after them. When he finally catches up, Clyde tells him the kitten is gone, claiming he buried it in the pet cemetery. He tells Jeff not to worry, saying that animals buried there can rise again and come home. Jeff lunges at Clyde and a fight breaks out. Unfortunately, the bully beats the protagonist. After all, he's much stronger. When the bullies leave, Jeff sets out to look for his kitten. He ends up at the pet cemetery Clyde told him about. It looks eerie and unsettling. Jeff hears a familiar meow. It's Tiger. Don't worry, the kitten is alive and unharmed. The bullies didn't have time to hurt him. Drew shows up. He also can't stand the bullies, but even more, he hates his stepfather Gus for his cruelty and terrible temper. Drew believes the story about the pet cemetery is nothing more than a scary tale for kids. That evening, Gus mocks Drew and says all kinds of awful things to him. Sadly, Drew's mother doesn't stand up for her son. Moreover, she sides with her new husband. Late at night, Zoe starts barking loudly. Gus snaps, pulls on his pants, grabs his rifle, storms outside, and pulls the trigger. Drew witnesses everything and is devastated. He finds his beloved pet, but it's too late. Zoe can't be saved. The next day, Jeff meets the devastated Drew and learns what happened to his dog. Together, they head to the pet cemetery, but then walk a bit farther and reach an ancient burial ground of the Mi'kmaq Indians. According to legend, anyone buried there will come back to life. That's where they decide to bury Zoe. That night, Drew's dog really does return home, but he's not the same Zoe they once knew. Now he's aggressive, his eyes glow red, and he reeks of decay. Drew brings his pet to Chase. The veterinarian notices a large wound on the dog's side. Chase takes some samples and decides to keep the animal overnight for observation. That night, Jeff has terrifying nightmares. The boy wakes up screaming and sees Zoe sitting right in front of him. 3 days later, Chase notices that Zoe has no heartbeat. He assumes his stethoscope must be broken. But Drew and Jeff know exactly what's going on. It's Halloween. Drew's mom helps him get dressed as a vampire. All the teenagers decide to meet at the pet cemetery in the evening. The bullies make a scarecrow resembling Renee and use it to terrify Jeff. They're thrilled that their prank worked. Clyde Parker starts telling a scary story about a doctor named Lewis Creed. Suddenly, An angry Gus shows up at the cemetery. The kids scatter in fear. Gus catches up with Drew and is about to beat him. At that moment, the furious Zoe attacks. The demonic dog pounces at Gus and quickly sends him to the afterlife. It turns out Drew and Jeff aren't the brightest guys in town, so instead of calling for help, they decide to bury Gus in that same ancient Micmac cemetery. That night, Drew can't sleep. He sees that Gus has returned home. The man has a terrible wound on his neck, but it doesn't seem to bother him at all. After taking a shower, Gus wraps a bandage around his neck and goes back to his wife's bedroom, acting disturbingly aggressive. The next day, Jeff and Drew talk about Gus's return. The man has started treating his stepson much better, and Drew is quite surprised by the change. Chase receives a call from the veterinary lab. According to the test results, Zoe has been dead for quite some time. A woman arrives at the clinic with her 2 young daughters to adopt a couple of kittens. Unfortunately, they're met with a horrifying sight. Zoe has broken out of his cage and gotten to the poor kittens. Chase drives to school to pick up his son. Jeff asks for permission to spend the night at Drew's place. The man agrees. He has more pressing matters to deal with right now. Chase heads to see Mr. Yolander, the veterinarian who used to work at the clinic before him. Chase tells Yolander the whole story about Zoe. The old man warns him that the dog is dead and urges him to leave town before things get much worse. It seems the old vet has completely lost his mind. Gus decides he no longer needs his rabbits. The family has rabbit stew for dinner. The man eats like a pig and frightens the boys. Chase watches a movie starring his late ex-wife and takes a gun out of the safe. The vicious Zoe shows up in his house. That night, Chase dreams about Renee. What starts as a romantic dream soon turns into a nightmare, as Renee transforms into a wild, snarling dog. Chase wakes up and realizes that Zoe actually did attack him. He barely manages to fight off the demonic dog before Zoe leaps out through the bedroom window. While Jeff is riding his bike to school, Clyde suddenly attacks him. The bully knocks the protagonist off his bicycle, causing him to tumble down a steep slope. Clyde catches up with the boy, grabs his bike, and threatens to rip off Jeff's nose with the metal spokes from the wheel. Gus appears out of nowhere. He grabs Clyde and orders Jeff to go home. The boy immediately jumps on his bike and rides away. Gus throws the arrogant Clyde to the ground, takes his motorcycle, lifts it upright, and decides to scare the bully the same way he just scared Jeff. Clyde's long scarf gets caught in the wheel. Oops! Drew watches the horrifying scene unfold. Gus spots the witness and starts chasing him. Drew runs home, locks the door, and grabs a rifle. Unfortunately, there's not only Gus waiting for him inside the house, but also the vicious Zoe. Drew pulls the trigger, but the rifle appears to be unloaded. The youngster bolts upstairs and locks himself in one of the rooms. While Gus smashes through the door with a hammer, Drew climbs out the window and escapes to the yard. Just then, a car pulls up to the house. It's his mother returning home. Drew jumps into the car and begs her to drive away as fast as possible. Unfortunately, Gus is right behind them, chasing them down the road and trying to force them into a crash. A truck loaded with potatoes appears on the highway. Gus pushes Drew and his mother's car straight into its path. The chances of surviving such a crash are almost non-existent. Gus returns and finds Clyde. He grabs the boy and drags him to the same Micmac cemetery. Jeff is devastated by the loss of his friend. He spends all his time in the attic and doesn't talk to anyone. Moreover, he takes out all of his mother's belongings and tells Chase that she will come back soon. The man begins to fear that his son has lost his mind from grief. Chase is then informed that someone has exhumed his ex-wife's grave. It turns out it was Gus. The sheriff lied, claiming he had a legal permit to exhume the body and took Renee's corpse. That evening, Jeff secretly leaves the house and heads to the Micmac cemetery. Gus is already there, shovel in hand. Jeff has to do everything himself. Obediently, the boy digs a large pit. Meanwhile, Marjorie stays home alone. She climbs up to the attic and examines Renee's acting costumes with curiosity. Chase drives to Gus's house with a gun in his hand. There, he is suddenly attacked by Zoe. One shot, and the dog collapses to the ground. Moments later, it crawls away. But before that, Zoe manages to bite Chase badly. Chase enters the house and finds the deranged Gus inside. His behavior is so erratic that Chase is forced to pull the trigger. Still, the shot doesn't seem to do much harm. Gus lunges at Chase and seriously injures him. With great effort, the man manages to reach his gun and knock Gus down. He empties the entire cylinder into him. Marjorie tries on one of Renee's costumes and applies her makeup. Suddenly, the real Renee appears beside her, smashes the mirror, and grabs a shard of glass. A desperate scream echoes through the house. Jeff goes up to the attic to see his mother. He is overjoyed to be reunited with her. Wounded, Chase returns home. He climbs up to the attic as well, sees Marjorie's body, and is horrified. Renee and Jeff sit on the couch. The woman offers her ex-husband a chance to start over. Chase and Renee ask Jeff to leave them alone so they can have a serious talk. But suddenly, the resurrected Clyde appears at the door. A fierce fight breaks out between the two boys. Renee laughs, locks the door, and sets the house on fire, while a badly wounded Chase can't save his son. With tremendous effort, Jeff manages to overpower his opponent by using a severed high-voltage wire. Renee realizes that she's beginning to melt and bursts into hysterical laughter. She begs Jeff and Chase not to leave her alone, but despite her pleas, Jeff smashes the door open and drags his father out of the burning house. Renee is left standing amid the flames. Chase closes his clinic for good and leaves town with his son. Jeff comes to understand that even though it's impossible to fully accept the loss of loved ones, life must still go on.